producing models without drawings. I think, in the future, that would be a game changer. We spend so much time on documentation that, often that slows things down. And sometimes the quality of the documentation from varying parties, it just differs. So if we could ever go down a route where, a model only delivery, I think that would be a game changer. I would love for that to happen.
Hello, Rishi. How are you today? Thanks for joining
Andrea.
us.
Thank you. How are
It's
you?
been very, very good. It's been a long time trying to organize this, but finally we made it. And today, in our podcast, we are talking about the state of BIM in 2025. That's very exciting.
Yes. So, I'm really looking forward to this podcast, to be honest with you.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Rishi. So just before we start, I have a couple of icebreaker questions for you. Something very simple and lighthearted. If you could take a road trip anywhere in the world, where would you go? And what type of snack would you bring with yourself?
That's a good question. I guess I'm in Australia. I obviously moved from the UK, and it is a wish of mine to travel around Australia. It would be good to, go around all the different states, visit the Great Barrier Reef, Ocean Road, and it'd be a great trip for me and my family. I've got young kids.
What type of snack would you bring with you, like if you are doing this road trip? Is there anything you would bring with you for you and your family to eat?
With my kids in mind, probably something like roasted almonds or something. Only because I know they won't melt in the heat. In WA, it gets quite hot. I can imagine the rest of Australia is pretty warm as well. And I probably appreciate the fact that no one else in the car will eat them, especially my family. So more for me.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't bring gelato with you probably unless you bring a fridge and a solar panel to feed this fridge.
Exactly.
Very good.
Exactly.
Very
High
good.
protein snack, Andrea, as a
Very good.
fellow
Very
gym
good.
goer.
Yeah, we need to stay healthy and fit as usual. Another question: if you could have any superpower to make a construction project go perfectly, I know it's hard, eh? So what type of superpower would you pick?
I guess for me, it'd have to focus on, aligning and educating people. I guess maybe a superpower of being able to hypnotize people. One of the biggest frustrations I have in my role is, being able to manage expectations. And I think if we can, from the start in our space, align with collaboration, planning, how we set things up, I think it's really important. So yeah, I know it's a bit of a weird one, but I'd like to be able to hypnotize people. I think it would make my life a hell of a lot easier.
Make sure that everybody behaves like a machine. So yeah, that would be great.
I think just getting everyone on the same page, to be honest with you, Andrea.
True.
I think often we all have the best intentions, and sometimes we have a good plan. But I think the issue we have sometimes is just the alignment of our thoughts and what the goal is that we want to achieve.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the things I would like my superpower, if I could pick one, would probably be the ability to predict the future. So if something goes wrong, at least I already know. I can be prepared and think about it. So yeah, but even your ability to coordinate everybody, so that shows the importance of coordination on this type of projects. It's very, very important. Yeah, thanks, Rishi.
No worries.
So I don't know many people know about your story and your life. We've been friends for a long time. We've been working together in the past, and I know, and I've been looking, watching your career evolve, and it's been an incredible journey. And I think, and I'm actually sure that people will be very, very inspired to know more about your journey and how you transition from all of the different stages of BIM and career and the different roles. So would you mind sharing with us your story and your journey from when you started probably back in the UK and then transitioned to Perth? So we can mention you live in Perth, and now in your current role as a global and Australasia BIM leader, which is very, very exciting.
Thank you. How long have you got? I try and keep this short. I began my career as a 20-year-old, I guess in the AEC industry. so in building engineering, building services engineering. I started a small consultancy after leaving what they call the A levels, and yeah, joined a small office, taking on a drafter's role and helping with engineering. So really focusing on being an engineering technician, which really kind of paved the way for me because it brought together the learning that I was getting. So they sent me to college 1 day a week, and then they got me to work 4 days within the office as well as to go to site. And I think that early experience really got me enthusiastic about what could be achieved. Maybe it was that, or maybe it was the fact that I had to spend the first year folding drawings and filing documents. If you look at stuff long enough, finally, when they get you to actually, get hands-on, you get really involved. Thereafter, I had the opportunity from going from a small goldfish bowl to a big pond, which was Arab. So I enjoyed that. I was quite young in my career and joined as an entry-level technician. That was a huge jump for me, working on some really large projects, Aquatic Center, Marseille Tower, the Shard, some really cool projects working out of the Camden office. And then over the years, through CAD and BIM roles, and then evolving to some form of digital engineering, I transferred to Australasia, to Perth. Came over here to support a company to deliver a project, which was Optus Stadium at the time. And to be honest with you, that was a huge experience, a learning curve for us all involved, to be honest with you, and great colleagues and friends that I've kind of picked up along the way through all of those major projects. Working through in Singapore, major projects there, as well as locally in the region. And yeah, having a knack for firefighting in a weird kind of way. I love trying to solve problems. And I think over time with experience, rather than trying to solve problems, the key now is to plan for them, as I said, to try and hypnotize people or at least manage expectations. So really interesting, I guess, career to a certain degree for me. And for me, the biggest takeaways were the people I worked with and the problems we overcome. That is my credit for the future projects I work on. I always kind of draw back on the experiences and the people I've worked with. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavor of where I've come from and what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you, Rishi. I think you've been very humble in telling the story of how you evolved in your career. I've been able to witness your evolution, and I know people in your career at Arup. Arup is an amazing company that gives people fantastic experience and opportunity to work on incredible projects. And also the people that work in that company are also incredible because they're always very happy to help each other. And over the many in the past, like, you became the go-to person for all things BIM. So I know that if anyone has a problem, but not just at ARP, if anyone has a problem about BIM, they can come to you and you always have a solution, which is pretty incredible. Considering the exposures that you have across many countries and different rules. So I'm very excited about this chat today.
No, just to add there, just want to say the most important thing for me is it's not the solutions that I'm aware of. It's the network of people that you have. And I think if I can pass on any kind of words of wisdom, it would be, focus on building that community and that network, because you don't need to know everything as long as people around know. It's about finding the solutions and helping people move forward. Cheers.
100% agree. Thank you, Rishi. So let's start talking about the main topic today, which is the state of BIM in 2025. But before we think about 2025, let's recap what happened in the past, just to give a little bit of context. So Rishi, from your point of view, how has BIM evolved in the last few years, and what milestone do we think we have reached in 2025? I know you have seen BIM from the very, very beginning. You mentioned that you started working in this industry, like folding drawings that were actually on paper, on physical paper, and then probably transitioned to this stuff in AutoCAD, and now the BIM space has evolved a lot with different software. It's not just Revit or just Autodesk. So what do you think? How do you think the BIM space has evolved in the last few years?
I guess there's more open collaboration. I think there's less silos with software in particular as well. I think the processes have always been there. You know, we always have an appreciation that we want to produce, our documentation and our models to a high standard as much as we can. But I think that, the advent of being able to leverage things like automation, data-driven design, have really changed the way we operate in the last decade or so. All those mundane tasks, I'm on projects at the moment, and a pivotal moment for us now is not how can we solve the problem, but how can we prepare and solve the problem through tools and automation, and let people focus on what's important, which is designing. I do think that technology has disrupted this a little bit, in the sense that some of those core principles, some of that core education and experience is probably not brought through, and software is trying to fill that gap. I just think, we're at a moment in 2025 where we can really leverage automation and data-driven design, and use all the technology tools to deliver. I think if I could say anything, it would be BIM is a subset of digital engineering, and I think now the industry is in a position to embrace that. It's no longer a specialist skill.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I know that you have been championing a great initiative in explaining to this industry, and particularly in our how BIM should be its own discipline. Like, we know that the industry is aware that structural engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, etc., is a discipline, and Arup has a long list of disciplines. But you championed this idea that BIM should be its own disciplines, and then that evolved, as you mentioned before, from just being BIM, building information modeling, into what we call digital engineering. Do you have anything else to add in terms of like BIM as a discipline? I know that it's a topic that is close to your heart.
Yeah, I think for me, the focus on BIM as a discipline is to ensure that it's not considered as just an output, to ensure that it's considered as an engineering discipline, from design all the way through to construction and asset management. And I guess that's where I really wanted to try and elevate it, especially within Arup, to give kudos to the team members, but also to give them a pathway, a career pathway, that not only benefits them, but is efficient to Arup. We don't need, whichever company, we don't need, people that are tracers. We need people that are really going to take engineering designs and document them and coordinate them.
Yeah, I think that the BIM has enabled that in a way that it's kind of like unique, because if you are inside a 3D environment in a model, you can actually see things that the traditional engineers were not able to see in the past, because you can actually see and touch, probably not touch physically, but you can actually have the feeling of what that part of the building or the piece of infrastructure looks like. And that's how from my point of view, like the importance of the people in the digital engineering or BIM teams brings a lot of value to this industry. And I've seen how that has evolved over the last few years, and that's a very exciting space, and to see how this will evolve in the future as well. Do you, speaking about, again, BIM and new words and definitions, we already mentioned like digital engineering, like we're not just talking about BIM, it's more about digital and engineering together. can you think, have you seen any new definitions in the BIM space, in the way it's understood and applied to different projects, for example, or different industries? I know you work in the building space, but also in the infrastructure space. Have you seen like new definitions or new words or new way to, in addition to digital engineering?
I think a lot of the definitions and terms focus on the same sort of stuff. There's variations to those definitions, but what really stands out to me are the definitions within standards. Those are the ones that can be agnostic, and those are the ones that I guess should be adopted on projects. So something like ISO 19650 has a series of definitions. I think it's really important that everyone in the industry understands those, because from my perspective, whether it's a lead appointing party, appointing party, appointed party, it's all about information, and that waterfall effect of information coming from the client down. And sometimes it can be confusing if you don't understand some of that terminology, EIRs, AIRs, and so on, and how that flows. I think that's the key. Otherwise, a lot of the other definitions are usually developed by industry or by software vendors.
Yeah, definitely. And that gives us a very good segue to talk about the latest standards. So you just mentioned ISO 19650. Do you see that these new standards are widely applied in the industry, or do you see a level of resistance from the client point of view, from the design team's point of view? What's your experience at the moment, and to the level, thinking about the level of adoption of this new, like relatively new standards?
Yeah, so I've had a pretty good experience in that, quite a few projects I've kind of embedded ISO 19650 principles, or even the standard as a whole if required. However, I recently done some certification, so with BSI for BIM management and asset management, and that really went through the ISO 19650 standard in detail. I really think that kind of education piece, along with delivery on projects, is a really good learner and experience, because that standard itself is really important. It kind of provides the gateways for information, and not just from BIM, but for the entire project and digital engineering. So I think it's really important we follow this where possible. It's not adopted on all projects. It's adopted on major projects, some infrastructure projects, especially in Australasia, but more so in the UK, quite heavily adopted. I think it's going to be the way forward in terms of how projects are set up, and it provides some guidance and some accountability.
Do you think that the resistance or the lack of adoption come from clients, or come from engineering team, from BIM team? Why do you think it's not applied across the board? Is there too much work, and it's probably to apply the standard? Is there too much work, or it requires too much knowledge for the BIM and digital engineering team to apply it? What's stopping us from applying that across every single project globally, from your point of view?
Preparing. Preparing on a project. ISO 19650 as a standard starts at the beginning. It starts with the client providing lessons learned, clear templates on what they want achieved, all the way down through to the appointing party. So I think there's not necessarily resistance, but I just think it's a awareness and an education piece, because all of those are processes that you can document. But the key is around awareness, education, and implementing that on projects. So if you're going to do, at the start of a project, a capability assessment, that means you have to do them on every project, and you have to get everyone to fill them out within a template. That type of kind of adoption is required.
It's always hard to find the right balance between introducing new standards to improve the work, and then increasing the effort in a way that becomes the only thing you end up doing, just following the standard and not designing the building. So it's a big challenge for the industry, but I can see your point. Thanks. One thing I wanted to mention that I think it's a great achievement and very, very ambitious project that Arup as a company globally has started is what they call the Arup global Revit standard. And for what I know, I would like to know more from your point of view. Like, we know that when you create a Revit model, you will have to call the different things in different ways, and depending on where you are all around the world, this name could vary because of languages or because cultural differences. So an example that comes to mind is the fact that in Australia, we call hydraulic engineers, but they are called public health engineers in the UK. So as soon as you start looking at this just for one discipline, then imagine all of the different systems and all of the different words associated to that specific project. So I know it's a big challenge for the industry to find a way to standardize all of the names and a good naming convention. And I know Arup has created this global Revit standard. So could you share with us the journey and how big this challenge was and all of the benefit that has brought to Arup over the years?
Yeah, like you say, I think it was a huge achievement for the company and all involved. It's a step in the right direction. Gone are the days where different regions, different countries, and this is for every company, different regions, different countries have folders with families for tools like Revit. And, there's a lot of rework and the use of wrong content. I think what happened was, in particularly in Arup's case, is they found the inefficiencies. So we came together as different regions and decided to adopt and combine our efforts within one company. This provided a whole array of content that we've created, as you say, that marries across different regions, different disciplines, with consistent naming, consistent conversion of languages. So it's a huge benefit to us. Over the last couple of years, it's taken some time to embed that into all projects, but we're now in a position where we've embedded that on projects and it's BAU. And now we're in a position where we're looking at, providing the local nuances. There's a fine line between producing a global standard, but then still providing a little bit of control locally, whether that's to, populate metadata or some particular type of naming or classifications. We've developed tools that allow us to push this database of templates and standards with clear configuration that's required locally. So I think we're in a really good position with the global Revit standard. But as you mentioned it, yeah, it's been a journey, definitely. And once again, it's got nothing to do with creation. We have smart people that have created all of the content. It's always about adoption and implementation and getting everyone on the same page.
Yeah, it's always like that. You can, like, to drive innovation, you need adoption. Innovation does not happen if there is no adoption. Otherwise, the tools that you create just sit in somewhere and people forget about it. But the idea that Arup has started this journey to attempt to improve in this space, and of course, like any big missions will require some challenges, and there are obstacles and road bumps along the way, but it's incredible like what they've started. Do you want to add anything about that? Or
yeah, I was just going to mention as well that I guess the key with the Revit standard that we've developed, or a standard that anyone develops, isn't necessarily the parts and pieces of the content. It's the data structure at the background. So that meant that if we were using Revit and Dynamo to do some emergency lighting calculations or pressure drop calculations in a different part of the world, as long as they use the same shared parameter file, it meant that we could potentially adopt those scripts and those tools and automation. So the bigger prize is the innovation. The short-term prize is the content and the families, so everyone can model straight away.
Yeah, very, very good point. And speaking of innovation, there is this point that is artificial intelligence that everybody talks about it, all industry talk about it. And we know that the construction industry in general is a little bit slower than average, I would say, in adopting new technologies. So now we have this new technology, artificial intelligence, that existed before, but now it's exploding. Now everybody talks about it. Do you see at the moment any adoptions of artificial intelligence in BIM or do you think that this will happen soon, or is this another case of, yeah, the construction industry will join the party potentially later?
Yeah, I see it happening now. I see it evolving on projects, but I think we have to do it with some caution. You have to remember that a lot of the stuff that we deliver, a lot of the project work that we work on, is all based on skill, and I guess intellect. People have gone to university, people have studied and experienced various projects. We just have to be careful in the sense that we don't create a samurai sword to cut an apple. I've seen one particular tool recently that links directly to the Revit API, and just takes all the commands as gospel. You know, think of the damage one person could do if you had connected directly to the API. But then on the other side of things, I've seen where we're able to use AI to help with classification systems. Stuff that's related to standards and guidance where we have to repopulate information. That kind of mundane, kind of simpler task is resolvable with AI. It's just going to be interesting as we go, how we tether the use of AI for functional use that can deliver quality and consistency. You have to remember we're still delivering, engineering designs. So there needs to be some integrity to be considered.
Yeah, that's true, because like artificial intelligence kind of it's a little bit more flexible in the way that allows errors and mistake to happen, and there is a different level of forgiveness when it's about artificial intelligence if you compare with the construction industry, and which is probably why the adoption could potentially be slower. So as you said, it's a matter of probably of finding the right direction. Where can we channel these tools in a way that they don't break the system, but at the same time they improve, they help us with the productivity and overall improve the build world for all of us. I know it's hard to predict the future, and none of us has the crystal ball. And also we know that the past performance could not be indicative of future performance in the industry as well. So, but if you try to think about emerging trends and what you think could shape the future of BIM over the next, let's say, 5-10 years, what do you think it could possibly happen in the next 5-10 years? What should we keep an eye on?
I think there's probably two answers there. What I would wish to happen, which has been a prophecy that people have told me for the last 10 years, and I've witnessed it occur, is producing models without drawings. I think in the future that would be a game changer. We spend so much time on documentation that often that slows things down, and sometimes the quality of the documentation from varying parties, it just differs. So if we could ever go down a route where a model only delivery, I think that would be a game changer. I would love for that to happen, but I suspect there's some issues in and around contractual information and making sure things are right in that sense. Where things could evolve, I think, as you say, AI is coming. I think we need to focus more on machine learning than AI. I think we need to look at what we know and how we deliver it, and see how we can enhance that. But BIM has a huge part to play in things, all things related to sustainable development. I'm on a lot of projects now where people are asking about carbon tracking, but this all comes back down to proper planning. If we're on a project and you want to undertake carbon tracking or achieve other sustainable development goals, we have to plan and prepare. We have to embed that metadata. We have to break models down in a certain way. So I think these trends around artificial intelligence, sustainable development, are really going to enhance the way we deliver projects and really take it towards what everyone else considers as that digital twin. I know we're going off topic, but there's this huge kind of conversation around digital twin, but really all of the processes that we need to undertake will deliver that eventually. And I think if we embed that within one process, which is BIM, will that be digital engineering, which is now, I guess, the clear direction. I think, yeah, that's the future trend for us is in moving forward.
Yeah, that's incredible. I really look forward to see where the industry is going and all of this innovation is coming. And there are some like maybe buzzwords, but also technologies that we have seen in the past, like virtual reality or augmented reality, that emerge in the past. And at some point, every time that one of these new things emerges, people are skeptical. Some people get excited. We also in the past were talking about IoT, Internet of Things, so integrated sensors in BIM models. What happened to these technologies? Like, do you think that they have been embedded in our projects or somewhat embedded? But what happens? Are they going to disappear from your point of view?
I think some of those technologies initially came into time maybe a little bit too early. And I think what will happen over the coming years is those technologies will be used to support the delivery of projects. I think when we're moving away from the fact that, oh, being able to use virtual reality, I can walk around my office and do clash detection. Who has time to do that? You know, so I guess the fluffy part of it is now been weeded out. And I think now we need to look at how can we focus on using this technology for functional use. So I think AR, VR, reality capture, IoT, they're all extremely relevant. But I think there's a time and a place and a function on a project. So only then will it be adopted properly.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Instead of you need to apply the right tool to the right problem instead of having a solution looking for problems.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, probably these technologies, these tools were solutions looking for problems. They have probably identified the problems that they could solve. They now solve those problems, and as you said, like all of the fluff is probably now not there anymore. So it's interesting to see how they are becoming business as usual,
Yeah.
and nobody's not surprised anymore when they see these tools.
It's a tool for your tool belt. So it's one
Yeah.
of 10 things, whether that's visual scripting, automation, data validation, clash detection. These are all important things that I think you need to have in your tool belt. So when you are on a project and you do come across problems, you have solutions rather than the other way around, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of tools, I want to talk about another very interesting topic that I know is close to your heart, which is the training and education and how to improve, help people improve and upskill. So we know that this is a technology like BIM and digital engineering that it could be relatively new in terms of like if you think how the education systems evolve over time, certain disciplines have been there for a long time. Structural engineering has been there for long time. So they have a time to prepare their training, their education system, their way to validate their training, and while at the same time, when you look at BIM and digital engineering, this discipline has evolved relatively recently in comparison with the other disciplines. So do you see any gap in terms of training institutions that are able to train the workforce to support the industry? What do you think we need to do from the training point of view to prepare the industry and the different companies that are working in this space?
Yeah, I do think there's a huge gap. I came from a background, as I said, coming through as an apprentice, and I learned along the way. 20 years later, I have somewhat of an understanding of, what we do and how we deliver, and I've gained some experience. So how do you replicate that in education? It's very difficult. I guess the way I try and kind of portray that is, how do we get everyone match fit to be able to work on projects and deliver them? And I just think that there is that huge gap in industry, and we are trying to fill it with individual courses. As I said, I did a certification recently in BIM management, but then there's lots of other topics around automation, data analytics, coordination. So we really, as an industry, need to solve that problem, and not only solve it, I guess, for the people that we work with, but grassroots. We need to ensure that there is an influx of people coming through from school to TAFE or to university into projects, whether that's broadly in digital engineering or a subset of digital engineering, whether it's BIM or GIS or what have you, so that they can kind of navigate into digital engineering. So I think we really need to focus on that vocation path, and look at grassroots as well, because otherwise there's nothing behind us, and we need to make sure that this job, this role, and the area we work in, we make it look desirable and there is a pathway for people to follow.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also important that the people, if people see that there is a training, a path for them, they can aspire to have a career in this space. And I also understand it's challenging because these disciplines keeps on evolving, and we record podcast episodes about the state of BIM in 2025 because we know it's evolving. So it's a moving target. It's hard to produce very good training for this specific purpose. But yeah, it's certainly a space that it's interesting to watch and see how it evolves.
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything about training or?
Yeah, I can follow up a little more in the fact that we are seeing some aspects of digital engineering come through, whether that's through university courses or units, as well as smaller 6 to 8 week run sessions. I think these are all great and provide a good training for the cause. But that does need to be supplemented with something a little bit more kind of Australian specific, as some form of accreditation, I think. And yeah, watch this space. You never know, something might come through.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks, Rishi. So I think we are at the end of our episodes, and just before we leave, if people want to reach out to you, Rishi, where they can find you?
Yeah, contact me on LinkedIn. I have an open door policy.
Nice.
Please do reach out. I'm more than happy to kind of talk to people or share my experiences if they want.
Thank you very much, Rishi. This was a great episode, and until next time, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.